Were the Falcons dominated by G2, or were they truly playing worse in the grand final? This is a question that a Reddit user asked, wondering whether or not the Falcons just choked when they should have been able to beat G2. Now, this has been a lot of talk after North America won their first major in a long time, but the first major that Americans have ever won, which is that, did they earn it, or did the other team give it to them for free? Now, going into the grand final, everybody felt like the Falcons were playing as the better team. The analysts on the desk actually all predicted the Falcons to win, with the exception, of course, the guy who has never once predicted G2 to lose in his life in teammates, so it doesn't really feel like that necessarily counts, although I'm sure he'd go back and tell you that he's a genius for having predicted them. But what this Reddit user went on to say is that they did an analysis of the goals that happened between Falcons and Gentlemates and the goals that happened between the Falcons and G2, and came to the conclusion that there were 4 goals that G2 was able to force and make the Falcons make a mistake in order to be earned, and essentially 5 goals that were unearned or unforced. Basically a complete error by the Falcons that gave G2 a goal. Now, in that case, that's over half the goals. They're suggesting that over half the goals were just Falcons mistakes that G2 did not really do anything to earn. So, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to double check that, because when I saw this Reddit post, I actually saw it like a week or so ago, I kind of just took it at its word. I didn't really go back and see. You guys remember, I actually didn't get to watch the major live. We did a little bit of a review of the finals here on the YouTube channel, but not the way we're going to be doing it today, which is we're going to take a nice look at every single goal and decide, was it forced or unforced? Does this G2 roster of North America actually deserve their major championship? Are they maybe the best team in the world? I'm going to help you decide, and I feel like I'm a great person to do so because I am a North American, but also a big MENA fan. So I'm sure you guys will trust that I'm unbiased, and let's go ahead to the first goal of the series that is scored by Atomic later in this game. All right, we jump a little bit into the future here watching Atomic. We are going to go over each goal 30 seconds out at least to get a little bit of context of how it happened and then try and decide, was it forced or unforced? And I'm going to keep a nice little counter up here on both sides for G2 and the Falcons. Goals that were scored by G2 that they earned are going to be showing up right here, and then goals that they were just kind of given and maybe didn't earn will show up below that. And then the same thing for the Falcons on the other side, so we can get an idea if maybe G2 are giving up free goals here and there or what. But Daniel is going to pass off the back wall. Rawas tosses this one over to Atomic, and the first goal of the series is scored. So was this a forced goal or an unforced goal? I can see how if you watch it for just a moment here, just in this last second, where Daniel passes out infield, Rawas kind of hands Atomic the ball, and he shoots top left, and it really didn't seem like Rawas needed to do that. So you can make an argument that this was unforced, but why did Rawas do this in the first place? I think you need to pull back just a little bit more before we call this an unforced error. Why was Rawas respawning here? Well, we see he was demoed out in the midfield, respawns in the back corner, looks to quickly adjust to the net using a flip that accidentally puts him a bit too far, and in a panic, in order to clear the ball out of, a very shootable area, he ends up side flipping it over to Atomic. Now, Clears, you might be arguing, well, maybe I wasn't talking about Rawas, or I'm theorizing the person on Reddit probably picked one of these as one of the unforced errors, so I'm arguing against them. But I don't think so. Anyways, Clears, 23 boost, making this clear on the back wall, has to touch this really soft, does not want to put it too hard back into the corner where Daniel and Atomic are waiting. He's trying to control it. He is getting pressured by these two in order to get a clean catch, and he's doing so on low boost, which is, of course, because he's been starved out by G2. Maybe a slight mistake, but definitely a forced one under a situation in which there's nobody in the corner, or he has a little bit more boost. He's not going to make that kind of mistake. Daniel and Atomic forced him to make the mistake, and then the last player we maybe could argue did something in this play is TRK. I think TRK would have had this clear if Rawas didn't touch it, but it doesn't matter. They didn't have the comms. They didn't have the read set up. Rawas was panicking after getting demoed because guess who demoed him? G2. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in the column of a forced error. I think this goal was forced. And so that's how we started off. Next goal is actually scored by the Falcons as we join in on Rawas POV. Clears going to lean back for a reset, flick in front, and Daniel gets the bump and taps this in. Definitely an earned goal. I don't think we need to go over this one too much. That's why I kind of just pulled it right into the start. Not only does Rawas get a bump, but he also redirects this ball around beast mode. Very earned goal, no question about it. It was not unforced. They had to earn it. So Falcons won in the earned column. On to TRK POV as we watch the next goal. And we didn't go too far out because, again, I think this is a very clearly earned goal. Rawas is going to air dribble off the back wall. 50 with beast mode, and TRK will send one on target. If we look at beast mode's POV, he gets just out 50'd by Rawas. He's trying to stop him on his air dribble. Nothing really, you could say that beast mode made a massive mistake. He just got beat and outplayed. If you look at Atomic, he decides after rotating back that he's going to turn in field and then gets beat. And this all starts with a Daniel dribble or a Daniel setup that is very natural to follow up and rotate around. It's not like he took way too long getting back. They just got beat out by a nice Rawas play that 50'd into TRK, and is definitely an earned goal for the Falcons and an earned game win in game number 1. Game number 2, and we're on Atomic POV, and so far, every goal has been earned, if you ask me. Let's see how it goes in game number 2. As Rawas has this ball on the side wall, Daniel is going to challenge him to take it away. A little communication between Atomic and Beast Mode on who should get boost. And a 50 in the midfield leads to another 50 that keeps the ball dead center. Rawas going to get chased down for a demo, something you're going to see a lot as Daniel 50s to his teammate Atomic, who's going to make a nice double. Now TRK in a panic on 0 boost has to make it clear. Everybody from the Falcons having to dive around as G2 fake and set up like crazy, and they get the eventual goal. Now I think this has to be a forced goal. This is just a good set of offense. I think the biggest mistake maybe is TRK at the very beginning of the sequence, who seems to be on low boost here on the back wall. A little double, maybe, you know, not just handing it over to beast mode is the best play. Maybe trying to control it or something on 0 or letting it fall in front of the net and just going across. That might be the best chance to do something better. But I think these other players did just fine. You know, did as what you could be expected of them. This is Killiers on 9 boost as he heads to the back wall to protect it. Daniel makes a strong first touch. Seems like he's clearly going to double and take it to the back wall. Ends up faking it as soon as Killiers realizes it's a fake because he did not have the boost to go challenge early. He is not able to get back down. And that's just a good play from Daniel by not keeping the ball close to the backboard. He does not allow a low boost Killiers to challenge early. Killiers challenges late and gets beat. And if you watch Rawas on 82 boost, he also just gets faked. You know, I think some people were saying maybe Rawas should be going up here. But if Daniel makes this touch, then Rawas jumping around this time just makes him look silly. He'll go flying underneath the ball. Plus, he knows he's got a backboard defender, so he's going to let Killiers go first just about every time. Instead, he waits, and it's too late. He got faked by Daniel, but definitely an earned goal, if you ask me, for G2. For this next goal, we are actually going to watch from Killiers' POV as the Falcons look to try and bring this game back to 1-1. Killiers going to try and make a couple different plays on the reset and into the bounce. Daniel and Rawas will 50. And now Killiers rotating back, hoping for the big 100 boost. It looks like it spawned there for him, even though I don't think he actually had it. I think that's just a bug on the replay. And then Killiers does not get a clear that we'd probably expect him to get. So 12 boost to work with, ton of time. Not really a lot of pressure here on the back wall. Sure, you know, it's an important touch to make, but I think it's one Killiers can be expected to make. Daniel, low on boost. He's not even thinking about going up. He even turns around. You can see down there, he's not going to be challenging. Atomic is nowhere close to the play. Beast Mode's falling to the ground. Killiers has a free touch. I think we can agree in this moment. Killiers has a free touch. Take it into the corner. Something like that will all do just fine. And instead, Killiers pops it right out to the midfield, and Atomic shoots and scores. This one, I think, can be argued that it's unforced. Now, of course, you could always go back and go back far enough in time and say, well, the ball's on this side of the field. If it weren't on this side of the field, then sure. I think this one's unforced. Killiers can be expected to make this. He probably makes this touch 1,000 times during the series and we don't even notice because he so easily clears it. And this time, he gave a goal away. Now, this is the last goal that was scored in Game 2, so it was a 2-0 game in favor of G2, meaning if we were to take out the unforced error that the Falcons made, and we assume no other goals would be scored, which is, of course, not guaranteed, it would still be a 1-0 victory for G2, so we can feel good about the fact that they also earned game number 2, as the Falcons have now earned game, and so does G2. Only one goal has come down to a big mistake. Let's head to Game 3. Game 3, if you're keeping track of the scores so far, the Falcons have earned 2 goals, and so have G2, but they've also been given one. It is now tied 1-1 in the series, and we're going to be watching from Beast Mode here at the start of Game 3 while we wait for the eventual goal. Now, Beast Mode going to take this one up the sidewalk. Kiliers and Rawas in net. A little zero boost pre-flip into 50. Tries to get, a little bit of discomfort on the back line, and then turns and shoots bottom left to score. Now, was there an unforced error on the Falcons side that caused this? We can go back and look how Kiliers handles this 50. He pops it up to TRK. Notices TRK has possession. So TRK does a dribble high out of his back corner, something that is often used to clear the ball away. Nothing too crazy. Rawas, who has, continued to play aggressive like the entire Falcons have, the whole tournament, sees an opportunity to maybe follow up his teammate's touch, one that he maybe frequently wins, but Daniel ends up forcing a 50 into the midfield. Something that we've already seen before, Daniel getting favorable 50 wins. You could argue maybe Rawas making a mistake for trying to 50 Daniel, but I want to give him credit for getting his car straight up and down, making sure he gets his wheels on the ball to win that 50. I think it's just a great 50 from him. So lastly, did Kiliers make maybe an unforced error? You could argue that this little wave dash out to midfield is maybe a bit of a mistake, but is it so crazy for him to be used to TRK and Rawas maybe getting some sort of 50 win? I mean, they all kind of threw all their marbles in on them being able to force the ball through Daniel. They were wrong. Daniel got just about the perfect 50 to set up beast mode, and Kiliers was in a bit too deep, and still, even then, it needed to be a pretty good shot into the bottom left to score it. So while I think this is one that maybe some other people would consider a forced error, I mean, an unforced error, all of this started anyways with the ball getting put into the back corner and forcing TRK to try and make it clear out of, the defensive half. And they weren't able to. So I'm going to go ahead and say this was earned. This was an earned goal, another in the earned column for G2. This next one actually comes shortly later as we're on Kiliers' POV. A little team pinch at the midfield into double. I don't think we need to go into this one too terribly much, just because since when would a team pinch like this with everybody, even back, potentially prepared, not be an earned goal? I mean, that's an insane setup. Got to be an earned goal. I know their rotations maybe could have been better, but I really don't think we need to get into it. Falcons, they definitely deserve earning this goal, and we'll move on to the next. And this game ends with another goal that I would argue is very clearly an earned goal or a forced, error for the Falcons. That's beast mode, full field air dribble, bumps Kiliers, and then this nasty redirect. I talked about it before, so I'll try not to get into it too much, but Daniel puts a great angle on this shot. Rawas was actually around in net to make the potential save and couldn't do it. If you don't think that one was earned by G2, then we don't have a conversation. So G2, another earned goal. Let's go to the next game. Now, game 4 was decided by 1 goal, so this could be a very interesting goal if it ends up being an unforced error. You could give an entire unforced game win to a team, so it is definitely one worth dissecting a little bit more. So we're going to watch from Rawas' POV as he is in and out of the net and makes a great save in order to clear this out, putting it into the corner as beast mode and atomic collect some boost. You're going to see no boost available for Rawas. They had been starved out, and then eventually Rawas gets scored on. So they were just at the end of a defensive sequence. It took actually a miracle from Rawas. Maybe a bit of a mistake to flip out. He was hoping for boost there to spawn directly behind him, and then another set of boost spawns directly behind him. And then after Kiliers 50s this up, Rawas starts creeping out to maintain his momentum. Even looks like down at atomic, and maybe he decides he sees atomic leaving. He sees him pointing maybe away from the ball, although he has to go that way either way to make a play, and then notices a bit too late that atomic is putting it back on target, and despite the very nice chain dashing, cannot get the 50 and the save. Now, nothing too ridiculous from Rawas, maybe a bit of a mistake here, but certainly one that is forced when he's being, made to make decisions on low boost because of the pressure that G2 were able to put on them. So I definitely going to say that is a forced error. Let's go look at the teammates, because you never know. Maybe TRK and Kiliers made big mistakes that led to this possession in the first place. After Rawas clears this one out, a great save from him. TRK able to steal that back corner boost and even get a demo, so a decent position. Maybe a bit late to challenge here on Atomic, I would argue. Seems to wait it out when he's probably the clear first, but ends up waiting and letting Atomic outplay him here late, closer to the goal line than he maybe otherwise would have been able to. And then Kiliers, I still don't think that's the worst thing in the world from TRK, forcing the ball out of that first attacker's hands. And Kiliers is actually hovering around to make sure that he can capitalize on TRK forcing. He's trying to get TRK to force Atomic to give up the ball, and then Kiliers will try and intercept. And again, maybe not the best touch ever by him, but he is getting pressured by beast mode and feels like he needs to make a touch ahead of him. He also can't really slow down too much because he might get demoed, so he might be feeling, the pressure of beast mode creeping up. And then Atomic just makes a nice play to put this back on target, and we already talked about Rawas. So, I think this just has to be an earned goal. It all started from, starving out the Falcons a little bit at, a few moments ago. Rawas got the big clear, but they were back attacking shortly after. While there are slight mistakes from the Falcons for sure, you can't sit here and say, oh, well, they're completely unforced, because if the Falcons just played to perfection, they would never get scored on. I don't think that's really fair. Beast Mode and everybody on G2 are forcing these situations out of them. So I'm going to go ahead and say this is an earned goal. I don't know if you guys agree, but I think it's clear. Earned goal for G2. All right, 3 more goals left to analyze, and they all come in the final game. And we're going to be watching from Daniel POV. We watched these a little bit, like I said, in the YouTube video we covered before, but it's a little bit of a different focus this time as Daniel finds the perfect touch at the top of the arena to put it out to the midfield, and then the follow-up from Atomic places the ball in the opposite corner to score. So let's go back and watch shortly after the kickoff. Let's see if any humongous unforced errors were made by anybody on the Falcons. Now, we talked about that first player challenging, just trying to dispossess the person with the ball, and that seems to be Rawas this time. He's forcing Beast Mode to get rid of it, which Beast Mode does. He flicks it, and I don't think we see Rawas back into play. Now, TRK, let's go to TRK because he's the one who is there to handle after the force. Picking up this back corner boost. Rawas forces TRK, taps into the corner, and is trying to set up himself or Killiers to get the ball. Maybe you could argue this touch isn't as good as it could be because nobody on the Falcons is able to follow it up, but that's far from saying an unforced error. You sometimes make those slight mistakes, and you don't want to put this ball out midfield and give it to Daniel for free, so it is a bit of a fine line. But anyways, TRK then transitioning up high, thinking Daniel's going to go high, and the perfect bounce out midfield. I can't really blame TRK for going up here, thinking that maybe the ball is going to stay in the corner. Daniel found a perfect spot on the wall that is really hard to read. And then Rawas actually gets back into the play after the midfield boost grab in order to make the last second save, and doesn't. Now, is this an unforced error from the Falcons? I guess TRK's touch here is maybe the worst, and then can Killiers maybe get the win to this ball? It doesn't seem easy as this ball gets popped up, and he does almost the best he can, but it's a tough pass. So a missed touch from TRK, unforced, I think would be an exaggeration. I think it would definitely be an exaggeration. So I'm going to go ahead and say that G2 earned this one as well. Now, this goal is one I remember I talked about before, and it's definitely a bit of a head scratcher with what the Falcons do, but I still think you could argue it is a completely forced error as Rawas gets bumped and then Daniel shoots on an open net. You might be thinking, okay, somebody must have done something wrong here because that net is way too open. And Rawas, well, first off, let's talk about Beast Mode again real quick because I think this touch is a really strong touch and it helps lead to the mistakes that were made, which is Beast Mode does not want to give the ball to anybody on the Falcons, so he gets this really soft touch to the sidewall where it does not hand the ball for free. It forces Killiers to miss, and then it ends up falling into the hands of Rawas, buying a tons of time for his team and allowing him to recover and get a bump. Now, Rawas also doesn't want to give the ball up. I mentioned this in my previous video. He doesn't want to just hand the ball to Daniel Atomic, so he plays slow, gets himself bumped. Now, what was everybody else doing? Killiers missing on the sidewall. TRK is the one that I think, when I watched this the first time, is a bit of a head scratcher. He's on the air dribble, leaves it, and man, does he go ultra aggressive, just massive trust in Rawas, and it doesn't work out. But this is kind of how they've been playing, and they kind of need goals. They're just getting beat by G2 right now. They're on the verge of losing the tournament if they don't start getting some offense, so maybe TRK is starting to take some risks instead of just playing defense all the time, and it doesn't work out. Now, Killiers, he is searching for a demo after he misses his touch, although I don't think he makes any terrible mistakes going up to the side wall. Beast Mode is very likely to put that ball up on the side wall normally, but he got a perfectly awkward touch for Killiers. So I think this is definitely an earned goal. So 2-0 for G2, and there's one last goal to check. A minute 22 left to go, and the Falcons are down 2 as we watch from TRK's POV. As we find out how the final goal was scored and whether or not we're going to find one more of those unforced errors, because I haven't found a ton. TRK is going to turn up field, and Beast Mode is going to double in. So I think on first glance and without context of the game of, the current game, score 2-0, or the series, this is a pretty big mistake by TRK. TRK turning at field, just super aggressive, expecting Rawas to win. But again, it's Daniel winning in the midfield on a 50, something that he's done a ton as we look back through these games. And he's not the only one who's going ultra aggressive. Rawas is air dribbling, and Killers is following directly underneath the dribble, which is, again, just expecting Rawas to get a big win. As he tries to rotate back, he cannot make the save. Now, of course, credit to Beast Mode for hitting these. I don't think everybody hits these, but we're kind of assuming that, you know, G2 is going to be able to make pro-level plays as they're in a grand final of the RLCS. So we'll give them those credit. Now, I am actually going to call this a forced error. Now, if this game, or if this goal happened maybe earlier in the series, or the very first goal of the series, there was actually an argument to be made. It is pretty, you know, boneheaded from that POV, but this is definitely forced. Considering the game context, they have not been scoring. They need offense. They need 2 goals in 1 minute and 11 seconds. They're going to start getting really aggressive, and they're really aggressive, and it doesn't work. And that's completely forced by G2. G2 have been dominating. They've made them do this, and so even though it looks really silly by them, it is necessary if they want to try and bring it back because they have not figured it out. So I would actually consider that also a forced error, which brings us to the end of our game and has almost every goal that G2 scored as an earned goal. I would say just the one where Killers made a pretty obvious clear or mistake on his clear was kind of given to G2. So I don't know how 5 of them were argued to be unforced. Maybe, you know, every single one that I had even a percentage of hesitation on, they just decided were unforced. I think you have to be a little bit of a Falcons homer to say that, and I think the reality is that G2, they did it. They're the best team in the world. They have made every single grand finals, and they won fair and square. People were maybe a bit disappointed because the series wasn't close. I wonder if the series was close and G2 still won, if everybody would be ready to give them credit, or if they would maybe not. And I think the answer is they would maybe not, because people are just used to North America not being that good. They haven't been very good in the past few tournaments, and people aren't ready to admit that North America has a good team again, and I'm excited about it. The reality is this team is good, and even if they go on and lose, because I know that the North American haters are just waiting for the next event when G2 might not win it again, and then they're ready to go, whoa, see, told you, that was just, you know, luck. They never played against any EU teams. See, they're not that good. No, the reality is this is a strong team. Sometimes strong teams don't end up winning the event. In fact, you could argue all of the EU teams are strong teams who ended up not winning the event. You could argue the Falcons are a strong team that ended up not winning the event, but the best team did win, and I don't know where this unforced error thing was coming from. All of these were forced. They pushed the Falcons back onto their back line. They're playing a ton of defense, which they don't super excel at, and except for one very obvious clear in which they should have been able to handle it. You know, when I think unforced errors, I think like percent chance to score is jumping huge. For some reason, I like to watch a lot of chess, so I'm thinking of the eval bar of like who's about to score. A humongous blunder type jump is one that I would consider unforced, and I think that pretty much just the clears clear from that one game in which I don't even think that would have been the deciding goal was the real unforced error, and the rest of them just were forced. G2 played a good match, and I'm glad I went back and watched this, because when I read that at first glance on Reddit, I took it mostly to heart. I thought, oh yeah, they must have made some big mistakes that I wasn't really watching closely. But yeah, I would say I disagree. I disagree with Razor 3047. I don't know if you guys agree. You got to watch all the goals back with me. And of course, this is not the best way to go over a series, is just the goals. There's tons of moments that we're missing. But for the sake of the YouTube video, we had to stick to just the goals. I think G2 earned it. Hopefully, you guys do as well.